Let's break down tariffs and why they matter so much in today's global economy. Simply put, a tariff is a tax on imported goods, charged by governments when products cross their borders. Governments use tariffs to make foreign products more expensive, hoping to boost domestic sales and encourage people to buy locally made items. Tariffs have long been used to protect local industries from overseas competition and as leverage in international negotiations. But their impact goes far beyond importers. They ripple through the entire economy, affecting businesses, workers, and families. Higher import costs often mean higher prices for consumers and businesses, making everyday goods less affordable. For example, pricier steel can raise the cost of cars, delay construction projects, or even force companies to cut jobs. Tariffs influence everything from grocery bills to job availability, touching nearly every aspect of daily life. The debate over tariffs is as much political as it is economic, sparking fierce arguments in Congress and on the news. Supporters say tariffs protect national security, American jobs, and the country's industrial base. Opponents warn they hurt consumers, raise costs, and can trigger damaging trade wars that spiral out of control. The stakes are high. A single tariff decision can reshape entire industries and alter international relationships overnight. In Trump's case, the debate reached new heights, dominating headlines and political rallies. It wasn't just about economics. It was about presidential authority and the power to shape trade policy. Could a president unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs, or should Congress have a say? This question set the stage for a historic legal and political showdown, with the eyes of the nation watching closely. The nation watched as the controversy unfolded, challenging the established order and raising fundamental questions about the balance of power in America. Donald Trump's America First trade policy was bold, divisive, and unlike anything seen in recent decades. It challenged the status quo of global trade and sent shockwaves through both domestic and international markets. He argued that America's persistent trade deficits and the loss of millions of manufacturing jobs were undeniable proof that the system was fundamentally broken and needed urgent reform. His solution was dramatic: use tariffs as a primary weapon to force new trade deals and to protect American industries from what he called unfair foreign competition. The plan was sweeping, targeting a wide range of goods, even from close allies like Canada, whose trade relationship with the U.S. had long been considered stable and mutually beneficial. Trump proposed a 35% tariff on Canadian imports, declaring a national emergency to justify the move and signaling a willingness to upend traditional alliances. The administration cited not only trade deficits but also the opioid crisis fueled by fentanyl and concerns over illegal migration as reasons, an unusual and controversial use of emergency powers. Economists and business leaders quickly warned that such sweeping tariffs would raise prices for American families and businesses, potentially triggering inflation and harming the broader economy. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, usually a reliable Republican ally, strongly opposed the plan, fearing retaliation from trading partners and serious harm to American exporters. Despite mounting criticism and warnings from experts, Trump pressed on, aiming to force companies to bring production back to the U.S. and restore American manufacturing dominance. The administration framed the debate as a fight for national sovereignty and economic independence, rallying supporters around the idea of putting America first. But the move sparked fierce opposition, not just from other countries but from American businesses, lawmakers, and even some within Trump's own party. The legal and political battle lines were quickly drawn, with lawsuits and heated debates erupting across the country. The stage was set for a major confrontation over the limits of presidential power and the future direction of U.S. trade policy. The outcome would have far-reaching consequences for global trade, American businesses, and the very nature of governance in the United States. Legal challenges to Trump's tariff plan came fast and hard. A coalition of states and major businesses sued, arguing the president had overstepped his authority. Their case centered on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. They argued IEPA was meant for true emergencies, not economic policy. The law doesn't mention tariffs, and the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to impose taxes. The administration countered that IEPA gave broad authority in emergencies, including tariffs. The core question: can the president use emergency powers to reshape the economy without Congress? The legal battle was set to test the very boundaries of executive power. The courts quickly weighed in. In May 2025, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled the tariffs illegal, saying the president exceeded his authority. But the decision was stayed pending appeal. At the Federal Circuit Court, judges questioned whether trade deficits or immigration truly qualified as emergencies under IEEPA. The administration responded with dire warnings, claiming overturning the tariffs could trigger economic disaster. Economists dismissed these claims as unfounded. Critics saw the administration's warnings as an attempt to pressure the courts. The legal fight became a public spectacle, with both sides digging in. The appeals court seemed poised to rule against the administration. All eyes turned to the Supreme Court for a final decision. The stakes, the future of presidential power and American trade policy. The nation braced for a historic verdict. The Supreme Court took up the case, with the nation watching closely. In a landmark decision, the court struck down Trump's tariff plan. The justices ruled that using IEEPA for broad tariffs was an overreach of executive authority. The majority opinion emphasized that Congress, not the president, controls taxation and trade. The court said true emergencies justify presidential action, but trade deficits don't meet that standard. A dissent argued for broader presidential power, warning the ruling could limit future responses to economic threats. The decision was a clear rebuke of Trump's legal strategy. The tariffs were invalidated, dismantling a key part of the America First agenda. The ruling reaffirmed limits on presidential power. The legal battle ended, but the political and economic fallout was just beginning. The Supreme Court set a major precedent for executive authority. The decision would shape future debates over trade and presidential power. The nation entered a new era of checks and balances. Trump's response was swift and furious. He blasted the Supreme Court on social media, calling the ruling a betrayal. He warned of economic disaster and accused the justices of political bias. Trump's rhetoric rallied his supporters and framed the decision as a deep state attack. Behind the scenes, his team scrambled for alternatives. They considered using the Trade Act of 1974, which allows limited temporary tariffs. This path was weaker and likely to face new legal challenges. The administration's goals hadn't changed, just the strategy. The fight over tariffs was far from over. The legal and political battle was entering a new, uncertain phase. The Supreme Court's decision brought immediate relief to U.S. businesses, ending months of uncertainty and anxiety across the corporate landscape. Billions in extra costs from tariffs would disappear, potentially lowering prices and boosting investment. Companies could now plan for the future with greater confidence, knowing that a major financial burden had been lifted. Importers could claim refunds, over $100 billion in total, a lifeline for many companies struggling to stay afloat. For some, these refunds meant the difference between survival and bankruptcy. The refund process would be slow, tangled in bureaucracy, but the economic impact was significant and far-reaching, rippling through supply chains and local economies. For consumers, lower prices on imported goods could ease inflation, making everyday essentials more affordable and stretching household budgets further. But workers in protected industries like steel now faced renewed foreign competition and job uncertainty. Many feared layoffs or wage cuts as cheaper imports returned to the market. The ruling was about more than tariffs. It reaffirmed Congress's central role in economic policy, reminding the nation that such decisions belong to its elected representatives. The decision forced a national debate on how to compete globally, sparking conversations in boardrooms, factories, and households alike. Deep divisions remain between free trade and protectionism, and over presidential versus congressional power. The country is split on how best to protect jobs while staying competitive. The chaos has subsided, but the fundamental questions endure, fueling ongoing debates in the media and in communities nationwide. America's approach to trade, and the limits of executive power, will continue to shape its future, influencing everything from jobs to international relations. The legal battle is over, but the political and economic story is far from finished. New challenges and questions are sure to arise as the world changes. The nation remains divided, searching for answers in a rapidly changing world, as Americans look to their leaders and to each other for a path forward.